So I would like to pass you over to Alina, Erin, and Nigel, who will be talking with us today. They will, we're going to make the session about 60 minutes, so it's doable within your days today, and then we'll have a Q&A if we have time at the end as well. Okay, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Bobby, for this opportunity to have us on and to be able to engage with the greater spa peeps in the UK. Before we get started, I'm just curious, by a show of hands on your Zoom panel, how many people have heard of Touchless Wellness prior to this webinar? Let's see a show of hands. And for those who don't have a camera on, I'm curious to see what the answer is. So Gemma, I see your hand up and I see Sarah's hand up, and we'll take it as, okay, maybe, 5–10% of the people on the call. So before we get started, I'd like to invite both one of my fellow board members, Nigel Franklyn, and the founder and CEO, Erin of the Touchless Wellness Association, to introduce themselves. My name is Alina Hernandez. I will be facilitating and participating today in the webinar, and I'm delighted that you all are here. So Nigel, can I invite you to introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our call. My name is Nigel Franklyn. I'm the founder of the Spa Whisperer. I'm also the co-founder of Moss Wellness Consultancy and a beautiful Celtic skincare brand called Moss of the Isles. I am both the Spa Whisperer and Moss Wellness Consultancy are wellness development agencies. We develop concepts for luxury destination wellness and well-being properties around the world, not in the UK, but just around the world. Little background on me, I started my life as a journalist. I have a master's degree from Sussex University in journalism, and then moved to California. I've spent the last 30 years in San Francisco. I was asked to go and write for an opening of a new spa just outside Atlanta, Georgia, for the San Francisco Chronicle, which I was writing in. And I had this beautiful experience with this therapist who made me feel safe and wanted. And incredibly connected. And I was so moved by this. I wrote the story of the experience, not the treatment or the spa, this experience of surrender. I then became a therapist because of it, and worked in the US as a therapist, opening several spas in the US, including for Disney World in Florida. And the natural progression now for me, the trajectory of my life is now I've fallen into wellness and well-being creation and development. I work with, I don't know how, but I've worked with some of the top names in the industry. I've worked extensively with Aman Resorts, Oberoi Group, Four Seasons, etc. So and also the lead consultant for Clinique La Prairie in Switzerland, the clinic, not the product. My niche at this point, in my career, my niche is science-based, evidence-based well-being and wellness. And to a point, medical wellness as well. So I also create some holistic well-being concepts and properties as well. But my favored space is in evidence and science-based well-being. Hence the Touchless Wellness Association. Thanks, Alina.
Thank you, Nigel. Erin, you're responsible for this. It's all your fault. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. I've come at this from a very different angle to both Nigel and Alina, which is probably why it makes us so special working together. I'm originally from New Zealand, and there I studied and qualified as a civil engineer. So I was one of those people that told people to dig up the road and put traffic lights everywhere and annoy all the motorists. So I love getting my hands a bit dirty. I'm a problem solver. I really like to understand the technicals of things. So I spent the first 5 years of my engineering career building roads and sewers and all sorts of things, even cemeteries actually, in New Zealand. And then I moved over to London and continued that. Absolutely loved it. Built highways, worked on traffic schemes, pedestrian schemes. The very early days of Imperial Wharf, helped build some of that. And then I had an opportunity to work for a private consultancy. And it was during that time that I started to do more kind of infrastructure for houses. So I spent another kind of 5 years dabbling away at different types of civil engineering projects, project managing them on site. Absolutely loved wearing, hard boots and high-vis jacket and getting dirty. And then an opportunity arose where I could move into actually project managing the construction of houses. And I thought, well, why not? It's kind of like the next step. And I was lucky enough to actually work for someone who gave me the opportunity to build multi-million-pound houses. So I started off with £3.5 million houses in Cobham, and then started building some more houses on St George's Hill and the Wentworth Estate. In these 10 to 15 million pound houses on Wentworth Estate, we started to install things like saunas and steam rooms and swimming pools. And I started to get a little bit of a feel for wellness. And I was like, do you know what? This is really exciting that I can actually help people feel better and offer them these kind of modalities that would enhance their life, rather than just providing roads for them to drive on. So they kind of like started to light a light bulb for me. I then moved into a career of designing and building and installing saunas, steam rooms and razzles, ice caverns, all sorts of things into high-end resi and commercial projects, such as like the Jumeirah Carlton Tower, Chelsea Barracks, Damac Tower, and also some of the largest residences in London. And this was really satisfying work because I got to help people feel better as well. This is all part of their wellness. And during this time, I came across halotherapy, which is one of my big passions. So some people might know me as the Salt Lady. I am on a mission to get the world salty. And having felt all the benefits for myself, I did build a salt room, start a small salt business, and offer my local community the ability to come in and get their salt sessions. I still also provide consulting for heat experiences, which is where my passion also lies. And during the pandemic, it kind of came to a head, everybody had like backed off from touch, and touchless was starting to come in. And that highlighted something for me that, people didn't really know how to approach touchless. They saw all these different technologies that were out there, but didn't know what to do with them. Or maybe they'd just throw a whole load of them at the project and just hope that it worked. And that kind of led to me creating the Touchless Wellness Association with a view to be able to provide further education, understanding in all things touchless wellness. And this is where our nice trifecta relationship began with Nigel and Alina. So here we are, the Touchless Wellness Association.
Thank you so much, Erin. I always find it fascinating to hear about your background because you have such a depth of experience. I am born in Cuba, but I was raised in the United States, hence the American accent. Although I've been living for more than 25 years in different parts of Europe, and I have had extended stints also in the UK in the mid to late 80s. I don't come into this area from Spa. In my previous career, I was helping to produce Olympic Games and World Cup, and I was very involved in the development of sports corporate hospitality management programs on a very high level to all of these events that all of you know, namely the World Cup and the Olympic Games. I did that for about a decade, and I segued into another career where I started to produce conferences for an international association based in Switzerland that was really directed to guiding the international retailing industry from the perspective of the big corporations worldwide that lead the retail industry. And then this led me into wellness, because in the 90s, people were beginning to say things like natural. You were beginning to hear things for the first time as spa. The Global Wellness Summit came more or less into existence, originally coming in from spa. And I got very curious because of the content that I was producing on an international level, that there was this trend that we now know today as wellness. My path led me eventually to specializing and becoming involved in something called translational medicine and science, which is how you take research and you then take it and apply it firstly on the clinical level, although the same things are done today in wellness, such as what Nigel does. In 2000, just on the onset of the pandemic, and I've been involved in the Global Wellness Summit Network for over a decade, I was approached by an owner-operator in Mexico who wanted to revamp his offering. And I had this idea to put together an evidence-based integrative concept for which I won the 2021 Best of North and South America at the Professional Beauty in London. The interesting thing about this concept was that I had been since 2019 been working with the Gariani Group, and particularly with the founder and CEO, Sammy Gariani. And I had this idea to take his mind-body technologies and actually put them into this offering, whereby it was a concept within a concept, where we took people, in addition to the traditional spa and wellness treatments, on a touchless technology journey. And I believe that this is one of the reasons I won the award, because the concept was so new. Today, fast forward, I'm also trained in behavioral change at the Mayo Clinic. I'm certified in health and wellness coaching. I'm a design thinker certified, which means I help organizations design experiences and figure out the problems and rapid prototype so that you don't have the traditional waste of development that we have in the industry. Erin and I have known each other in the industry quite a few years. We met in Dubai, actually. And Nigel, we've gotten to know each other, and I call him, as well as Erin, one of my dearest friends in the past year and a half. And today I'm involved with owner-operators. I've put together a major development team, and I'm very involved in everything from design briefs all the way to the implementation of guest journeys. I'm currently often writing within the industry. You can find me in the Spa Handbook. You can find me in American Spa and Spa 360. You can even find me in a Swiss consumer magazine called Annabelle. And I'm also co-chairing with Erin, co-chairing the Touchless Wellness initiative of the Global Wellness Institute. And I also co-chair the Mental Wellness Initiative of the Global Wellness Institute with Professor Jerry Bodecker since 2018. So thank you all for being here. And now, as we look at the screen, I invite us all to just, for a moment, pause and ask ourselves, what is this whole thing called touchless wellness? Does it mean we're not touching anybody anymore? What does it really all mean? And we thought we really got together several times and asked ourselves, what is the one thing that we really need to communicate on a first-line basis about touchless wellness? And we really thought, well, we need to really talk about why it's relevant, and we need to help people understand why this is a means by which one can future-proof any spa business, not just stay profitable, but increase profitability. In November of last year, Erin, Lee, and I had a conversation. I had been doing this for Gariani. I also sit on the Gariani advisory board, as well as the Touchless, and I also chair his scientific advisory board. So Erin was writing this paper, and then we started talking, and I said, well, listen, I've been doing this. And she said, well, why don't we do this paper together? And we did. And in November of 2023, we wrote the seminal understanding of touchless wellness, and we published it in this paper that you can access free of charge. You can download it either from the GWI site or directly from the Touchless Association if you just become a member, and then you get all of the emails and you stay abreast of all the latest developments. So we decided we have to define this, because unless we define this, we don't have a common agreement on what it means. And I'm not going to go too much into the whole lengthy, but what I do want to invite is the initial part of the definition, which I think is the most relevant. And that is to say, we decided that touchless wellness refers to any treatment, therapy, or experience that delivers a selection of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits using a product or service with the intention to benefit the health and well-being of an individual without the need for direct physical touch or a therapist to deliver the experience. Now, I want to pause here and invite that it's not to say that it cannot be in conjunction with a service provider or therapist-led experience. It just means it's complementing. It becomes what we now term as a hybrid experience, because touchless wellness experiences can be curated as standalone or as part of a full integration with other treatments or therapies as part of the overall guest experience. And although touchless wellness practices have been around for millennia, think meditation, gun baths, sound healing, energy healing, and the list goes on. And we begin to understand that the idea of using touch to deliver spa and wellness treatments is a relatively new invention. So we like to, we did an even further deep dive, and what we realized is that the word technology itself, all it means is the way you artfully apply any knowledge. So think of the fact that this hardware here, which is a phone, is just the way that some form of knowledge and many forms of knowledge have applied to create this. And so it invites a reframe also for you and your careers and your work and in your lives. The knowledge that you have, how can you think outside of the box and apply it? And this, we invite, is the way that you can think about not just touchless technology and any knowledge that you apply in your everyday job. Before now we begin to, I will invite both Nigel and Erin, and we're going to look at this. And the question that we have for all of you is, consider thriving in the new spa and wellness ecosystem. How will you do that? Then we know that that we are in the midst of the threshold of a new era in the Spa Quest journey. And how is it that we begin to envision the future so that we can not just think about something new, but in thinking about a new way, we're also beginning to act in a new way. And that organically shifts us into a different direction. So I would like to invite now both Erin and Nigel to take us through these images, and let's talk about what we see here. Nigel, if I can invite you first to talk a little bit about these images, what it means, and what does it mean to thriving in a new spa and wellness ecosystem.
So I'll just start a little bit, just something you said, Alina, that when we started the Touchless Wellness Association, the perceived idea was that we were anti-therapist, anti-touch, and that's not the case at all. Actually, perhaps ironically, Touchless Wellness then becomes an extension of the therapist's hands. I was a therapist. I trained therapists around the world on delivering an experience of surrender to each guest, right? So I'm very much pro-therapist. But what I see when I see Touchless Wellness is that it is an extension of the therapist's hands. And as a therapist myself, I want all the tools available to me to create a space of optimized well-being for each guest that I come into contact with. That can be my hands, that can be technology. The heading of this, consider thriving in the new spa and wellness ecosystem. Pay attention to that, because this is not a trend. This is a shift. it has touchless wellness, as Alina has said, has been around for millennia. But the technology aspect of touchless wellness is not going anywhere. So the conversations that we need to have with each other is how we incorporate this technological shift in well-being delivery systems, and how we incorporate those into for example, a more traditional holistic spa setting, right? So I'll take the middle picture first of all. Biophilic design is touchless wellness. It has a place in the touchless wellness arena, as does sound bathing, forest bathing. So biophilic design is really quite a critical point. We're talking about biophilic design a little later, so I won't go into too much detail. But what we see here, and if you look at the schematic plan on the left, this is actually a project that we did, a small project that we did for a client who wanted to upgrade her spa space. Specifically, she was on 2 floors. And, even from a design perspective, it was very dated. From the offerings that she had, also very dated. But she wanted to update everything, but also speak to a different demographic. So with touchless wellness, you get to enter the conversation of, I'm looking down here, I should be looking up here. I'm looking at everybody in the corner. With touchless wellness, you get to enter the arena of science, of recovery, of memberships, for example. So specifically with this client, she wanted, there were gyms in her neighborhood, and she wanted to create a membership model and to speak to a different demographic. Her current demographic was, people going for the weekend, champagne, hen parties, that kind of thing. And she just wanted to make a more serious commitment to wellness, a wellness delivery model. So here we put all of the more traditional treatments upstairs. We took out here, they had hair and nails and manicures, pedicures. They all came up, they went upstairs to the upstairs floor, and we've dedicated this first floor to the recovery. So this is going to stimulate not only an additional demographic of, as I said, recovery, etc., but it's also going to galvanize the treatments that are going on upstairs. And this is the big conversation about touchless wellness. It's not necessarily what does it do as a standalone delivery model, but actually what does it do for your entire business model in general? How does it stimulate other practices within your spa? So this is what we've done. I'll leave Erin, if you can walk us, because this is halo therapy, so you can walk us through the circuit.
Yeah, so I think also touching back on what Bobby said right at the very start as well, that we're all suffering with the shortage of labor. So what this enables one to do is to maybe have someone at the reception, you're doing your intake, you're bringing them in, and potentially providing them with some kind of circuit for them to go and work through on their own. Within that circuit, there may be some of the treatments where they go upstairs, where the therapist would come down and take them out of the circuit and take them upstairs. But what we tried to do with this is to create some flow so that it was a natural progression through some of these circuits. The great thing about a lot of these technologies and the touchless technologies we're talking about are also plug and play systems. So there's not a huge amount of infrastructure that needs to go in or modifications to the fabric of the building. So it's very easy for certainly for this example that we were working with, to make some very, very minor tweaks in order to facilitate adding all of these different modalities. So we've got some, some social space there. Of course, social wellness is really key at the moment. People want that interaction, but also providing them places in which they can be on their own as well. So we've got the Vitality booth there, which is halotherapy, of course, one of my favorites. But what we've done there is it's actually stacked with red light. So we're integrating 2 different modalities at once, which enables you to be, moving through things quicker, but getting extra, bang for your buck in a little amount of time. we worked together with the owner of this facility, and we came up with, I think it was 4 or 5 programs as well, based on different outcomes. And each of them would do the circuit maybe in a different order for different lengths of time to achieve that desired outcome at the end. And when we're doing these kind of spatial layouts, what's really key as well is to kind of keep wet things in wet areas, not have noise going past quiet zones. So there is a lot of thought that goes into the back of these. It's not like, well, I'm just going to pick a load of different technologies, throw it into a space and job done. That's kind of the kid in a sweetie shop scenario. What we want it to be is very thought, a lot of thought to go into how someone will go through the circuit and achieve the ultimate outcome and enjoy their experience at the end of the day. Do you want to carry on with the other images, Nigel?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. Well, I know we're talking about this in a little bit, but I'll just add to that. The reason, as Erin said, the reason we created some programs for this particular project is simply because we can stack. There's the physical stacking, the physical placement of the technology that creates the circuit pathway. But specifically, we created programs for them because there's no one way to stack just stack the circuit for every single wellness deliverable, right? So, somebody who wants X result has to go through the circuit a different way. Somebody wants Y result has to go through the circuit another way. So this is the reason why, and I think that's an important note that we'll discuss later, but this is specifically for this. We worked with the space that we had as Alina said, these are plug and play. But the programs are really the important part, because then each program guides the guests through the circuit itself.
I'll just add one more little bit onto that part, is that it then also gives you the flexibility to offer these as standalone. You could also offer memberships. You can do packages. There's lots of different ways that you can then price point these and get different demographics of people into them. So we're seeing a lot of men coming in and really enjoying, the contrast bathing element of it, but also compression boots and things like that. Different times of day, different circuits are being done, different people are coming in. You've got options for people to be able to do it at lunchtime, do something that's really short and sweet that's going to give them a nice boost for the rest of the day. So I think our client was over the moon with the different options and array of different things that she was able to offer out of the back of this design.
And just on the membership part, I mean, obviously, this is an incredible way to galvanize your membership model. But I would also dare to say that without some of these technologies, without this kind of circuit reference, it will get progressively harder to offer memberships with just, your steam sauna shower facility, even with a fitness. So the conversations that we are seeing in the industry are really towards science, towards technology, but towards recovery as it relates to your membership model. So it will start to get progressively, I feel like the prophet of doom, but it will start to get progressively difficult, I think, to offer sustainable membership models without some touchless tech intervention.
So thank you guys for this. And before we go forward, I'd like to summarize basically some key points. The first thing is to remember that what we're talking about in terms of touchless wellness is basically the context in which you're delivering wellness. If we think that up until now, the traditional idea or business model of wellness has been relegated only to the spa, and that people didn't think about wellness in the entire property. Anyone on this call who works for a hospitality offering for a hotel will tell you that it's always been a very big, heavy lift for spa and wellness people to really get out of corners and to convince GM and upper management that the spa is a really important part of the entire offering of the hotel. So up until now, these experiences have been verticalized, relegated to a piece of real estate where a particular treatment, normally done by a service provider or a therapist, delivered classical types of menu items such as massage, facials, all kinds of body treatments. With the advent of touchless wellness, what it's doing, it's completely opening up the entire space of a property to include wellness throughout the property. By incorporating the mindset, the idea of touchless, all of a sudden, a sauna can double or duplicate for an evidence-based heat therapy, for a social wellness component because it's done with more than one person, and thirdly, as part of an entertainment. Think of Aufguss, event sauna. These are now categories that are continually merging. We need to think in how we're going to entertain the guest. And the idea of touchless and the touchless environment starts to get us thinking in a different direction about how we may creatively deliver wellness. And we need to have all kinds of technologies help us because, as we all know, and therapists on this call will relate, there is something called fatigue for therapists. Some people having to deliver 8 and 9 different treatments on a daily basis. What happens when one of your colleagues calls in sick? More importantly, if somebody's very fatigued and stressed out, there's something called absenteeism. You basically can't perform your job the same way because you haven't taken care of yourself. And touchless wellness provides a means by which to alleviate a lot of these issues. It's not just about the shortage and what that may impact to the owner operator, but how that actually can positively impact the service provider. So these are some of the things that we invite you to start thinking about. So go on,
sorry,
Nigel.
let me just jump in real quick on that. And also, guys, even with infrared, I'm sure you guys know infrared, you can't see it, your body reads it as heat, it heats up your core temperature and it detoxes you at a cellular level, right? Which is where your heavy metals live. So if you have on your treatment menu a detox massage or something, by adding the infrared sauna to that treatment, now you can really start talking about detoxification, which is really difficult to discuss because it needs to happen on a cellular level. And for that really to happen, you need an infrared intervention. So I would imagine, let's take the detox massage and the infrared. How great is that? Because it is perceived as one treatment, one therapist, but actually the therapist will put the guest in the infrared sauna and then, have a rest and wait for them. Just to kind of go on to Alina's point, where actually this, these technologies are the friends of therapist fatigue, not the enemy of therapist presence.
Thank you, Nigel. I mean, that was a really good segue into this, because as all of you can see, this is a different array of touchless technologies. It's not an extensive and finite list. It just basically gives you an idea of some of the ways that touchless can show up. Notice that it goes everything from a sauna all the way to a particular piece of technology, to Nigel's point, infrared, far infrared, red light, vibroacoustics that you see here on the Wellnamis, the Gariani Wellnamis, for example, and all of the heat experiences that Erin was talking about. And how can we begin? How can you think creatively? How you curate these, how you create treatment and experiences menu to basically deliver what was once very heavy to deliver in an array of different things. Think of how you might deliver, to Nigel's point on stacking. If traditionally a massage takes anything from 50 minutes to 90 minutes, and therefore you have this piece of real estate that is being taken up by this, imagine if you take the same 50 minutes and you're able in one session to do, for example, a manual lymph drainage. You're able to put someone on a vibroacoustic piece of technology for 22 minutes, and you're able to finish that with a relaxing facial 20-minute or 15-minute mask. Normally in the past, that would have not been possible. And now you can have the ability to have 3 sets of treatment and experiences, and traditionally what would have taken only been able to take 1. And Erin, I'm wondering if you can talk to this, because Erin is our resident expert and sort of techie geek. I've never seen somebody who has more gadgets and technologies in her own house. And I'm really happy she does, because every time I go, I get to benefit from them. So Erin, I'm wondering if you can speak to this, because I know that one of the reasons why we got together and we had this very, same mindset was because you were seeing this trend. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that relates to the new environment?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trends which I guess, we need to look at it more like Nigel says, as a shift. People taking charge of their own wellness as well. People liking to be in charge of it, able to drive their own wellness and wellness journey. As Alina already said, these are all different touchless technologies. A lot of them even open the doors to being able to democratize wellness to an extent as well. You're looking at saunas. Yes, you can have children in saunas. They just need to be told how to use them. Salt rooms, for example, are great for all ages. There's so many different options there that enable children's families, teenagers to be able to enjoy wellness. And then you've got the monetary side of things as well, because a lot of these technologies are turning around a return on investment in as little as 2, 3, 4 months. And you've not got the additional labor on top of those. So really, to be able to get people into the spa, even to kind of dip their toe into what wellness is and offering them these different options. These are all, sorry, Nigel, did you say?
No, just real quick, because just to your point, because the everything you see on the screen and these kind of models, what they really represent are a lower therapist engagement. That sounds awful, but a lower therapist engagement, an optimized guest engagement, and optimized revenue potential. Because as Alina said, now you're taking a 30-minute or what, a 50-minute massage, and actually you now have 3 or 4 interventions that create a pathway, a circuit to optimize well-being without so much hands-on from your therapists themselves. And just I think I said this before, but just as a therapist myself, I look for the tools available to me, whether it's products on the shelves or whether it's technology in the spa. Back in the day, there was no technology in the spa, but I look on how I can deliver the optimized version of my guest, right? And using technologies and touchless interventions, even like sound bathing, even like biophilic design, even like functional music, where guests are able to have interactions with their environment themselves, without it coming exclusively at the hands of the therapist. And then, Erin, just to your point also, one of the things when I look at touchless wellness is as Erin said, it's the autonomy it gives your guest over their own pathway of wellness and well-being. This creates ownership, so your wellness does not exist at the hands of another person. This gives you autonomy over that.
And I love that, because what you've just described, Nigel, is the pathway to long-term sustained change, positive change. People will not change because it's something that is prescribed and imposed upon them. People will change because they go and do what they like, and they keep repeating until it becomes automated.
Yep.
And I think one of the things we need to be careful that we don't lose is that engagement between the therapist and the customer or the client, that they can still experience that interaction while being directed through the journey, between the different modalities or different therapies that they're going to do. That's the time to connect again and bring them back in and make them feel, warm and cozy, and, that they're really special and important. And then you deliver them to their next treatment or therapy. And that is the best of both worlds. You're getting the touchless with that touch as well. And to Alina's point, yes, I like to try before I buy. I'm all into that. And that was one of the main reasons for kind of bringing this Touchless Wellness Association together, was that there's just too many products and pieces of equipment out there on Amazon and on eBay and all over the internet that are just unverified, and just I want to make sure that there's quality that we're using out there, because quality products will deliver quality outcomes. And if we're not prepared to invest in the right pieces of equipment, we're not doing our job as spas and spa professionals. We need to make sure that we are giving the best to our customers.
Can I jump in on that? The Touchless Wellness Association was really formed, governance is my favorite word, but was really formed to offer governance to the Touchless Wellness is without a doubt the fastest expanding branch of wellness and well-being. To Erin's point, whenever you have this kind of shift, people want to fill it with noise. To quote Lord of the Rings, that which we do not know hollows the mind, do not fill it with guesswork. So the Touchless Wellness Association, based on that one Lord of the Rings quote, is here to offer governance and to a point censorship, because we want the technology that we are associated to be the true touchless, and nothing to do with the noise. I very rarely go on LinkedIn anymore because my messages are filled with people selling me pieces of technology from China that are claiming to do all, it's a nightmare. The Touchless Wellness Association offers governance to the noise and to separate the wheat from the chaff, that this is the noise. Actually, if you're associated with the Touchless Wellness Association, at least this is where things have been to a point vetted, and we are supporting these touchless interventions.
Thank you, Nigel, for that additional really important piece that really drove that home. So how is it that we then engage in the idea of the transition to the hybrid space? We believe we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we do need to shift, and the word is shift, our thinking so that we're able to move with the times rapidly, because everything is in a nanominute. And we need to be courageous in trying these new things, understanding that we will make mistakes, but we invite everyone to consider, how will you transition into the hybrid space that combines the idea of human service provider driven treatments and services and experiences with the support of technology, and how do we artfully apply that? For your consideration, and I'm going to stop at every single one of these bullet points and invite both Erin and Nigel to chime in on this. We believe that this is the emergence of Wellness 3.0, this hybrid space, and that there are certain key elements and attributes to this that we need to wrap our heads around so that we may be able to become more facile in it and we may be able to execute on it. The first point, which is really important, is that it creates an adaptability in design. How often do we know, for those of you who have been involved in these early development, the early development of a project, that the owner operator is thinking one thing, the architect is thinking another. They bring in a consultant when everything has been done and dusted. And how is it that you can retrofit all these different concepts? As we said earlier on in the call, one of the advantages of touchless is it creates de facto a great adaptability in design. So Nigel, I'm wondering if you can briefly tell us how you've seen that in your latest work. And then I want to bring Erin's voice into the room, because thermal areas and heat experience are one of those things that when it's done wrong, it's pretty hard to undo it. So I'm wondering if you can each speak to what you're seeing.
Well, you know me, I love a good juxtaposition. So biophilic design, specifically biophilic design, adds a juxtaposition. If you are in a room with technology, that can obviously feel quite sterile, the opposite of what a wellness environment should look like. So what we want to do when we are adapting the designs is to create more organic surroundings with biophilic design, with functional music, things that are allowing the guests to kind of fulfill their kind of connected to nature aspect of it, while getting the technology itself. Your spas with technology, your spas don't have to be clinics, and this is why it's important with the touch. What we want, we don't want the Touchless Wellness to come in like the big monster and change everything. We as a developer, I love a good future proof. I love a good free greenfield project, but the reality is most of mine are retrofitting. And that's where we come in with the adaptability in design, because it's one thing to put a machine in a room, but then what we already know we're going to get the best out of the technology, but how can we get the best out of the space itself?
And I love working with designers and architects. I mean, they have these wonderful fandangled ideas, but very rarely do they think early enough of, what needs to go back into the structure or the fabric of the building. And too often have I seen the situation where they want way too many different things. And I think more is seldom more. We maybe need to strip it back a little bit and look at the simplicity again of, okay, maybe it is just a sauna and just a steam room that one has, but maybe they're bigger. And maybe we can have other things happening in these spaces. Like Alina already mentioned, the UFGAS heightens the experience. It creates social wellness. There's fragrance, there's light, there's sound, there's complete engagement within the space, rather than having 10 different heat experiences where you go in, you go, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing in here, come out, go into the next one. Oh, this one feels a little bit like the last one. What's the difference? Into the next one. And I see that so many times. People literally go in, out, all around the spaces. I mean, steam rooms, you could have, little trays outside with different scrubs with a little instruction card. Go into the room, scrub, give them something to do. Because there's nothing worse than going into a space, getting bored and not knowing what to do in there. So I think, adapting to those kind of things and bringing in all this experiential and engagement together with Nigel mentioning about the biophilic design, opening the doors, pushing the spa further out. I know there's some wonderful spas across the UK that have really held on to that and, forged the way. So kudos to them. But again, if we don't have those spaces and they're more urban saunas, then bring the outside in.
Thank you for that. And I think basically with these comments, we've touched upon these key points of seamless integration with the built environment. The nudging techniques for sustained behavioral change. Everybody's familiar that, legislation, particularly in the UK, that was changed many years ago, that basically candy is no longer in a supermarket or anywhere allowed to be sold where it can be reached by a child. That is a nudging technique. How will you design, or how will you create spaces within your spa to facilitate people's change in their own behavior? How might you do that? What might you do to perhaps encourage certain types of behavior? And this forum today is not to really go into in any great detail, but it's really to ask these important questions so that we begin to think about that. Positive interactions using multiple elements in the space to potentialize the many benefits of the space. As Nigel mentioned before, what is it that you might do within your treatment menu to incorporate in many different ways into the space? And basically, how is it that you change up the service design? How is it that you create a different type of an experience to be able to tie all of these things together to make it not just more beneficial, to make it more fun, to make it more entertaining, and to make it more engaging? And then last but not least, with what Nigel mentioned already, how is it that you will put this all together to future-proof your business model so that you're not in a cul-de-sac on the way you currently earn your business, how you make your business work? We can have the next slide, please, Erin. So now we get into this area that we're calling precision wellness. And we at this point felt that it was interesting to start talking about in the last 10 minutes or so that we have, and then we'll really take it to questions because that's where the real learning happens. How can we think about a treatment and experience stacking for bio-individuality? And what for some of you who may not be so familiar with that term, all it basically means is where each individual is his or her own world, and we're different. And what may be good for me may not be good for you. And now we have the technology, we have the know-how to be able to understand people's individual needs. How will you design in your spa and wellness space those treatments and experiences and the sequence of them and how you put them together to address more of the individual needs? And I'm wondering, both Erin and Nigel, if you can talk a little bit about this and this cycle, because this is something we get asked all the time. And it's not a straightforward, simple answer, and the one size does not fit all.
Well, I would say the glorious thing about this evolution of our industry is the acceptance that wellness is bio-individual. It is amorphous. It means something to me, something different to Alina, something different. So in order to deliver precision well-being, and precision well-being is a step above personalized, a large step above personalized well-being. This is precision. So in order to and precision is important when you're talking about bio-individuality. Precision is important because not only do you want to find out, where your guest is in terms of their own wellness, you also want to know who your guest is in terms of the information that they're able to receive, right? So this is the importance of the bio-individuality of wellness and well-being itself. Here we put up actually, Erin, do you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. Here we put up just an example of a reset program. And again, it's not going to be for everybody. And it's also going to depend on the time of the month, or what you've done in the previous few days, or if you're recovering from a cold or something. But it really just shows a cycle of how you might optimize the different technologies to create a desired outcome, which is what we would call a reset. I think there's been a bit too much of the contrast bathing, where it's sauna, extreme hot sauna into extreme cold. That doesn't work for everybody. It's really not pleasant sometimes. I mean, I love a cold plunge, but on other occasions, my body just can't take it. And funny enough, Alina and I have been on a few different experiences, and we actually went on one where we were sent into a cryo chamber. We didn't do any intake. There was no form. There was nothing asking if we had any pre-existing conditions. They then proceeded to ask us, well, how long would you like to go in there for? And that to us was just really not acceptable. Careless. And so what we need to be able to do is do that correct intake, making sure that we understand the customer and then put them on the right path. So this one here does do a contrast bathing, but that could also be, a snow room. It's a much more gentle, kind of more of a one size fits all. I know we're not talking one size fits all, but it means that you can go in there and do a much more gentle cold experience.
And then
moving into your halo. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, finish. Sorry. I thought you go ahead.
Then moving into your halotherapy and red light, you're building on your contrast bathing, you're adding the halotherapy and your red light, you're boosting your mitochondria, you're opening up the airways, you're relaxing them, getting them ready, you're priming them for then this massage. And there you can look at stacking all these other add-ons like your functional music. Potentially while you're on your back and maybe doing the legs, you could have an LED face mask, little upsell, extra bit of revenue on there. You're adding scent, you're adding the touch. So you're taking this what was a touchless circuit, now you're bringing it into the touch element. And then after they've had this, then they can go onto the vibroacoustic bed. So you've got, the binaural beats, you've got your relaxation, and you're really just helping them to reset after that massage. So that's like just one ideal circuit. But again, time of day is also critical to this. you would not send someone off to do your contrast bathing straight after lunch. So we need to be mindful of when people are doing these circuits as well.
What I was going to say, if you look at this example here, effectively what you're doing is turning a 60-minute massage revenue into 120 minutes full guest engagement, full 120-minute revenue. So if you look just at this one that we just did very quickly here, if you look here at the revenue streams that are now validated by this one, this reset program, you'll see easily here that the return on investment does not sit on the shoulders of the technology itself. Your return on investment is going to come from all elements of this circuit. It's going to come from the memberships that are stimulated by touchless technologies. But specifically for here, it's a prime example where you have a therapist engagement for 60 minutes, yet you have 120 minutes of guest engagement and revenue.
That's really quite the full circuit of information. So thank you for that, guys. So we decided, so what would be the key takeaways that we would invite you guys to think about? Well, first and foremost, Touchless is a completely new way to deliver wellness product and services, full stop. Rethinking the design brief is important for your project within the built environment, to be able to accommodate and create more flexibility for this type of wellness delivery. The need for education and training to further understand these new developments and evolution of this type of delivery and execution as a new way of thinking about wellness programming. We invite you to revisit old business models and think about what new ideas, what new versions of this you can create and deliver, as Nigel mentioned before, very well, more ROI than you previously had. And then finally, between 5 to 10% higher margins on each average guest spend where Touchless Wellness is involved. And the question then becomes, why would you not integrate Touchless Wellness into your offering? And with that, we just want to give you a bird's eye view of some of the activities that the Touchless Wellness Association is involved with, everything from thought leadership and the early adaptation of the new, what we call Wellness 3.0, which is the reason we're on this call, the education and training, which is something we're very passionate about and are very excited because we're developing some really cool things that will be launched, particularly in 2025, probably the first quarter. And then this also speaks to learning, upskilling, and integration into the wellness offering. How might you all learn more on how to better implement this for yourselves, for your clients, and in your career? We also provide advisory and consultancy in terms of creation, development, and implementation of all of this. And then we also do all of the outreach and the thought leadership through the Global Wellness Institute, where we provide guidance and support, and we act as a reliable source of information. So we invite the fact for you to consider that beyond a trend, touchless wellness is a shift. Thank you so much for listening. And now we would love to open up the forum for questions, comments by any of you. So I would invite, if you're interested to make a comment, if you have a curiosity, please step forward. Oftentimes, the questions that you have, most of the people on this call will have. And so your question becomes a learning opportunity for everybody on the call.
I see Stavros on this call. He always has a question.
Nothing like putting him on the spot. Joanne, I saw that your
hello from Greece.
Hi, Stavros.
Yeah, I told you.
And I do see that Joanne Harris's went off first, and I see she's on camera now.
Hello,
Joanne,
guys.
take
Hello.
it away.
Well, first of all, thank you. Apologies for the way I look. I'm literally at home making pasta as I'm listening to your webinar. So thank you so much. It's brilliant. I love it. And honestly, I completely agree. It's the way to go. I think one of the things that maybe you guys didn't touch on is educating the client, because obviously what clients expect is that, you know, hands-on, I'm getting value for my money, blah, blah, blah. And so they perceive that as a physical type of treatment. And so I think there's a lot of education that's needed around educating the client to understand the technologies, to understand why it's beneficial to them to pay the extra LED mask or vibro bed or whatever we're sort of putting on the circuit, so that they understand the benefit of it, because I think sometimes they don't.
Yeah, look, with the touches, we have a whole education module for the touches, but you're 100% right. There's no point putting technology in the hands of a therapist who isn't able to deliver that information to their guest, right? You can safeguard it somewhat by putting it, as you saw on the slide, by putting it in the framework of reset, and they kind of have, but that's just safeguarding it. But why safeguard it when you can absolutely just deliver? I agree with you completely. When you can deliver all of the pertinent information.
So
Yeah.
I also agree with you, Joanne, and I'd like to add the following. We are primarily a B2B platform. That is to say, we're not out here educating the consumer. That is ultimately the responsibility of the owner operator, the spa director. So because we cannot boil the ocean. And we've taken a strategic decision that first and foremost, we need to educate the people who are running these businesses. Because if the people who are running these businesses and are not delivering don't know how to deliver this form of wellness, it doesn't matter. We could re-educate the whole world. And we feel that our first approach is a top-down. We want to make sure that the people who are in fact investing, operating, and delivering these know what they're talking about. Then the shift is on them. The onus is on them to ensure that they're offering their client and everything that they are doing and communicating is done so properly, why we're so passionate about educating. But that's a really good point. And that's actually something that we can put in our little to-do list for our emerging education and training modules. Anybody else? Stavros? I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Hello from Greece. Well done, and congratulations for this initiative. You know, we're talking each other, you know, in this panel and with other people, but and what we've seen the last 4 or 5 years, especially after COVID, we need, to my point of view, to educate the sales and marketing people in every hotel or organization or travel agent or whatever that will be around hospitality, because the business models all around the world are building up around accommodation, bed, breakfast, and that's it. And then, okay, we have a nice yoga session, we have a nice spa and whatever. So I think that we need to educate and convince the people. So if we can have like the 3 key points for touchless, wellness experiences, that we can speak with these people, sales and marketing, to include them into their sales calls, what they're actually doing. And of course, the spa managers and, you know, the therapists, from my point of view, it's not an easy thing, but it's something that they will understand is the benefit of them, you know, to develop themselves. But I think the key point people into the hotels are the sales and marketing. And is there that we have to find a way to, not to educate, but give them to understand what is this precision wellness model and how to sell it and why to sell it and all these kind of things. Thank you.
Thanks, Stavros. I would just jump on that quickly, Steph. I think that, you know, these pieces of equipment, they ain't cheap. So I think that anybody that you can get on board to qualify. I mean, look, you know, we're spa people and wellness people. We speak emotions. Hotel people speak numbers. So there always has to be a language in between to translate emotion into revenue, right? So so Stavros, to your point, getting everybody on board is a way to underline the commitment to the investment on return of investment. The reason, I mean, these guys have heard me say this 1,000 times. The difference between a shift and a trend is a trend comes, it comes with capex, and then it goes. Shifts come with capex and they stay. So when you're talking about investment specifically for a shift, the argument for it is much greater. So I think getting everybody involved, training the therapist to deliver the information to the guests, getting everybody involved, sales and marketing, reservations. If you're throwing out, potentially $500,000 plus on investment, you want to get everybody engaged on getting some return for you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments, questions out there that someone wants to share?
No.
So I think we'll begin to wrap it up. And we thank you all very, very much for being with us today. We hope that's been helpful to all of you, both professional and personally. And we look forward to continuing to provide additional leadership as well as support and guidance in this beautiful area of touchless wellness.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
go to
very
the
much,
Touchless
all
Wellness
three of you.
website.
Sorry, go on.
Just go to the Touchless Wellness website, sign up, join.
It's free.
Thank you very much, Alina, Erin, and Nigel, for your time today. I think this session has been absolutely fantastic in giving us a much more information into this subject. And as we said earlier, we will be able to share the recording of this, but also we will share your contacts as well, so that people can follow up on that as well. So thank you so much.
Thank
You're
you all.
welcome.
Thank
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you all.
You.